From the Boston Globe is sports columnist and media columnist Chad Finn. Chad, good morning, my friend.
Hey, DA, how you doing, man?
I'm good. How are you doing?
I'm doing okay. Snowing up here, but we'll be in sunny Minneapolis in a couple weeks. So.
The only place that's colder and more snowy than New England. But, hey, the Patriots going for a Super Bowl makes everybody a little bit warm. I want to first, though, start. We just played the John Malkovich piece yesterday as a sports media columnist and critic. What did you think about the Malkovich piece, which got a lot of traction and a lot of viral notoriety yesterday?
Yeah, I thought it was super clever. CBS has had a knack for doing these things around the championship game time, and when they have the Super Bowl, they have the Super Bowl next year, not this year. But I would expect them to have something very creative there, too. And it's getting to the point with those where they can start getting people that maybe you wouldn't expect to do that sort of thing, like Malkovich or some other sort of quirky actor, and bring them in and have them know that they're going to be a part of something that is going to get a lot of positive attention generally.
Interestingly, this year, the biggest media story surrounding the Patriots was not written by somebody in Boston. It was written by Seth Wickersham of ESPN, the magazine. Obviously, when that comes out, a lot of Patriots fans say there's nothing to see here, and this is just more Patriots slander. But did Robert Kraft kind of yesterday validate the piece by admitting that it was time for big egos to come together, and that was the only way they were going to be able to win a Super Bowl?
Man, that's exactly how I heard that too, and it's fascinating because you read that story and you read it a couple of times, and you start recognizing where stuff may have come from, or where who might have been the source on this, or who might have been the source on that, or who had the reason for this piece of information to come out. And so it gets really fascinating. And you start realizing that probably everybody to some degree had their say in that story. And then the story comes out, and everybody pretty much categorically denies it, or in some semantic way says that part wasn't true or this part wasn't true. So to hear Robert Kraft say that yesterday, kind of, if I'm Seth Wickersham, I'm like, see, this is validation right here that what I wrote is accurate.
Yeah, Chad Finn joins us from the Boston Globe. And then that brings us to that scene on the sideline as Matt Patricia and Bill Belichick embrace. Usually those embraces happen after the Super Bowl championship for Bill Belichick, because he's been around the block enough to know that the road is not over now and just getting there is not enough. Is that a sign that this does feel like at least it's some type of ending? And I guess that's because both coordinators are going to leave?
Yeah, it was a sign. It was something we have seen after a previous Super Bowl. It was actually the one they played against the Eagles when they won their third Super Bowl, and it was Romeo Crennel and Charlie Weiss who were leaving for the Cleveland Browns job and the Notre Dame job. Neither of those worked out that well, as it turned out. But Belichick's shown that sort of emotion before, but it was after a Super Bowl. This was a little bit different because they still got one more to play, but I tend to look at that and see it sort of as respect for the Jaguars, that they realized that game was 10 minutes left, 3rd and 18, down 10 points. It looked pretty grim, and it was part of the reason it looked so grim was because Jacksonville is a really good football team. I think there was some belief on the Patriots sideline that maybe they weren't going to be able to pull off the escape in this one that they have in so many other games in the past. So I think it was pure joy, and it went away real quick with Belichick. You saw him on the postgame.
Right.
Somebody asked him about Brady's cut in his hand, and he said, well, it's not open heart surgery, mumble. And so it was this fleeting moment of happiness for Belichick before he realized he had one more game to go.
Yeah, it's interesting that he also said that about Brady. I know that he never wants to inflate anybody's ego too much, even Brady's, but it felt a little bit like a dig there at Brady. And coming off of the Wickersham story and then hearing Kraft kind of validate the ego thing, do you think that there might be a little animosity between Belichick and Brady for any reason?
It seemed like kind of a lousy thing to say in the situation, don't you? I mean,
yeah,
it seemed that way to you. He goes out and Brady does another incredible Brady thing without Gronk, with his hand clearly hurting. I mean, who knows how much it actually affected him because he played really well. But that game would be the number one performance in the career of most quarterbacks, and yet it sort of just stacks up with other ones Brady has achieved. But of course, you've got to still appreciate them. And Belichick just sort of blew it off in that situation. It was strange to see, and again, like with the Kraft comment, if I'm Seth and I look at that, I say there's a little bit more evidence that maybe everything isn't as peachy as it should be. I just thought it was kind of crude of Belichick to respond that way in that situation.
Chad Finn joins us from the Boston Globe. So the Boston media is a really interesting place with the New England Patriots, because if you go against the Patriots, you A, bite the hand that feeds you. They are the most popular story in town, obviously the most popular team, the most successful. But also B, most fans don't want you to criticize the Patriots. They want to read glowing pieces and everything's positive because, hey, a lot of things are positive. So how interesting in your mind, being in the middle of that, listening to sports talk radio, reading the newspapers, reading the blogs, reading the columns, and watching television, how interesting is that dynamic that I think the media wants sometimes to be critical but might feel like they can't, and then the ones that do are kind of seen as contrarians?
Yeah, it's strange in a couple of different ways. You have some media who sort of, I guess, nitpicks is might be the right word, but just looks for something always to criticize them for, and it's really hard to do. And so when they when things continue on the way that they have for the Patriots, with win after win after win, and all the Super Bowl appearances and all that, it gets really redundant really fast in terms of deliberately trying to be negative. It becomes predictable. And I think those people really find themselves scrambling to find something to write about or to talk about this team. It's transparent when you deliberately try to be negative about the Patriots. But the Patriots do bring it on themselves. They're a very guarded team. They're a little bit disingenuous, like with a story like Seth Wickersham's. When that comes out, I guarantee you that people very, very high up with the Patriots and relevant to Brady, Belichick, and Kraft all talked for that story. And yet when the story comes out, it's categorical denial. So as a reporter, that gets really frustrating because you see sort of a two-faced approach to things sometimes. And it's just so unnecessary. If you just sort of treat people like human beings and are on the level about most stuff rather than being paranoid, I think things tend to go a bit smoother for you. And some storms that come up with them wouldn't come up if they didn't kind of create them themselves a little bit by the way they handle themselves. But no franchise in professional football history has had the success that they've had over the last 20 years. It's almost a double dynasty at this point, the way they've bookended this thing. And so in the end, it justifies, I think, how they handle themselves. It just feels like that things could be a little bit more simpatico with the media, and some of the stuff that they do is unnecessary.
It's a good way to put it. Double dynasty going on with the Patriots, and you grew up in a New England that was a lot of consternation, a lot of cynicism, a lot of pessimism because things always went poorly, and now it's a generation of fans. You could have fans in their 30s that don't ever remember the bad times. I mean, Patriots fans in their 30s probably don't remember not going to Super Bowls, especially if you go back to 1996. What, in your mind, does this do for this generation of Boston sports fans that at some point it has to end? What does it do about expectations and appreciation and all of those things that get baked into all of these titles?
Well, if you're 23 years old, right, you don't remember any time before Bill Belichick and Tom Brady were the Patriots and going to Super Bowls and doing all this stuff that they're doing, which is just mind-boggling. It changes your context on everything. That it's even beyond an expectation that things are going to go well. It's an expectation that things are going to go well, and you're entitled to them going well because this is how it has always been, and it's never going to change, and this is how things are. And so kind of makes them a little bit insular, that they're very protective of what they have, but they're also really quick to get frustrated when something goes wrong. And when something goes wrong, it's, losing a regular season game or two. It's not what happened to the Jaguars yesterday or what happened to the Vikings. So it's a completely different culture than the one I grew up in. I was 16 when the Red Sox lost the '86 World Series to the Mets, so that was my expectation. My first year watching baseball was '78 when the Red Sox and Yankees. Red Sox lost the playoff game to the Yankees. So I think upbringing sort of in the area you grew up in determines how you sort of the prism with which you view things as a sports fan. And Patriots fans right now view this like it's never going to end. And that's why people are complaining about the Jimmy Garoppolo trade. Your team is on the path to the Super Bowl, and they're still mad that the possible successor was traded during a season, and you kept Tom Brady. You still have Tom Brady. So it's a strange world and a different world than I grew up in, but I hope they realize how lucky they are.
Chad Finn of the Boston Globe. Check out his piece at thebostonglobe.com about a number of interesting nuggets, 24 thoughts of the Patriots' victory over the Jaguars yesterday. Also follow him on Twitter at Globe Chad Finn. Chad, it's always fun for us to have the conversation, man, and to catch up. All the best. Keep doing great work, man, and hopefully I'll talk again soon with you.
Same to you, man. Thanks for having me on.
You got it.